My ex showed up after 5 years with my son. I demanded a DNA test and got 0% match. But my activist sister launched a viral campaign calling me a deadbeat dad. I lost my job and reputation, until the truth left everyone speechless. I'm 29 years old. I work in finance for a mid-sized company downtown. And, honestly, I never thought I'd be here telling this story because what happened in the last 6 months basically ruined my life in a way I can't even fully explain. The thing is, my ex, Melissa, contacted me after 5 years, literally 5 years without speaking a single word. And when I saw her message on Facebook, I thought, well, maybe she wants to say hi or, I don't know, catch up or something, but no. Turns out she had something completely different in mind, and that something made me enter a legal and family nightmare spiral that I'm still trying to get out of. To understand all this, I need to go back a bit, like to 2019 when Melissa and I were dating. We'd been together for about a year and a half. Nothing super serious, but it wasn't just casual either, you know. We were a normal couple in our 20s who went out on weekends, watched Netflix. It staged those things. It wasn't a huge drama or anything. We just got to a point where we both felt things weren't going anywhere and decided to call it quits. She moved in with a friend across town. I went on with my life, and that was it. We stopped following each other on social media, deleted numbers, the whole clean break package. I didn't see her again or hear anything about her since then, and honestly, I didn't think much about it because, well, that's how things are sometimes. So, fast forward to March of this year. I was at my apartment on a Saturday afternoon, watching a basketball game or something, when I get this message request on Facebook from Melissa. At first, I hesitated whether to open it, because after 5 years, it's kinda weird, right? But curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. The message said something like, "Hi, Brandon. I know it's been a long time, but I need to talk to you about something important. Can we meet?" And I thought, okay, maybe she's going through something difficult and needs help or advice. I don't know. We were always friends before we dated, so maybe she just wanted to reconnect. I told her sure, we could grab coffee or something, and she responded super fast saying she'd prefer it to be at her place because she had to show me something. That already made me a bit nervous, honestly, because show me something? But anyway, I agreed and went to her apartment that Sunday. I knocked on the door, and when she opened it, she was standing there with this little kid, like 5 years old, holding her hand. The kid was cute, brown hair, big eyes, playing with a toy car. Melissa invited me in, and everything was super tense. She wasn't smiling or anything, and I still didn't understand what was happening. We sat down in the living room. The kid went to his room to play, and then Melissa drops the bomb on me. She tells me, "Brandon, this is Noah, your son." I swear I just sat there trying to process those words because they literally made no sense. I said, "What? What are you talking about?" And she explains that she got pregnant right before we broke up, that she didn't tell me anything because she was confused and angry, and that she decided to have the baby alone without involving me. The first thing I felt was like a punch in the stomach, you know, because if that were true, it would mean I have a 5-year-old son. I don't know. But at the same time, something didn't add up. I asked her why now. Why after 5 years was she telling me this? And she basically told me she was going through financial problems, that raising a kid alone was very difficult, and that she needed help with child support. Like, she literally told me she needed me to start paying her child support immediately. And that's when everything started to sound super suspicious because, I mean, if he really was my son, why wait 5 whole years to tell me? Why right now when she's supposedly broke? I told her that, okay, if that kid is mine, obviously I'll take responsibility. But we needed to do a DNA test first, because I couldn't just take her word for it after so long without contact, and that's when the whole circus started. Melissa got super defensive. Told me how could I doubt her, that it was obvious Noah was mine because the dates matched perfectly, that I was being cruel by not trusting her. But I stood firm, told her it wasn't anything personal, but any person in my situation would do the same, that it was the logical and right thing to do. She kept giving excuses. That the tests were expensive, he told her I'd pay half no problem. That she didn't want to subject Noah to that. He explained it was just a cheek swab, nothing traumatic, and basically did everything possible to avoid the test. That conversation ended with her angry and me completely confused and stressed. I left thinking, what are the chances that kid is really mine? Because 5 years had passed, she never mentioned a pregnancy, never contacted me, and now suddenly she shows up with a kid. I decided not to tell my family anything yet because I wanted to wait for the test results. I didn't want to cause unnecessary drama if in the end it turned out he wasn't my son. But Melissa didn't stay quiet. Turns out she went and told everything to my sister Sarah, who's like 2 years older than me and has always had this super activist social justice streak, which is normally fine, but sometimes leads her to get involved in things without knowing the whole story. Sarah called me like 3 days after my encounter with Melissa, super upset, yelling at me on the phone about how was it possible that I had a son and wasn't taking responsibility, that I was being a deadbeat dad, that it was my obligation to support that kid. I tried to explain to her that we still didn't know if he was my son, that I was asking for a DNA test precisely to clarify that, but she didn't want to listen. She told me I was using the test as an excuse to evade my responsibilities, that Melissa had no reason to lie about something like this, and that I was a misogynist for not believing her. The conversation was horrible. We ended up yelling at each other and she hung up on me. After that, I managed to convince Melissa to do the test. I think she realized I wasn't going to give in on that, and that if she really wanted child support, she'd have to go through the legal process anyway. We went to a specialized clinic. They took samples from me and Noah. The kid was fine, didn't even realize what was happening, just thought it was a normal medical checkup, and they told us the results would take about 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks were the longest of my life. I'm not exaggerating. I couldn't concentrate at work, wasn't sleeping well. My mind was racing all the time, thinking about all the possibilities and what each result would mean. On one hand, if he was my son, I'd have to reorganize my whole life, take care of a kid I didn't know, deal with Melissa for the rest of my life, all that. On the other hand, if he wasn't my son, it would mean she had deliberately lied to get money from me, which was equally disturbing. The results came on a Tuesday afternoon. I opened them right there in my office. My hands were shaking as I read the document. Probability of paternity, 0%. The kid was not mine. I felt like a mix of absolute relief and rage at the same time, because, seriously? Melissa had tried to make me believe that kid was mine, knowing perfectly well he wasn't. I sent her a photo of the results by message and told her this was over, not to contact me ever again. She responded with a bunch of messages saying maybe the results were wrong, that we should do another test, that the lab could have made a mistake, but I was already fed up. I blocked her number and thought that was the end of this whole nightmare. But no, turns out it was just beginning because my sister Sarah decided to make this her personal crusade. Like 2 weeks after the results, my family organized a family gathering at my parents' house, something casual like a Sunday barbecue. I went thinking it would be a normal day. I arrive, and there's my dad, Michael, my mom, Jennifer, my brother, Kevin. He's the youngest. He's 26. And Sarah, obviously. Everything was going fine until Sarah confronts me in front of everyone. She tells me out loud, in front of the whole family, that I'm a disgrace, that I'm oppressing a single mother, that I used my male privilege to manipulate the test results, and all this speech that sounded like it came straight from Twitter. I showed them the DNA results right there, passed them to my parents, explained the whole situation to them. My dad was on my side immediately, told me I'd done the right thing by asking for the test, and that it was obvious Melissa had tried to scam me. My mom was quieter. I think she didn't really know what to think about the whole thing, but at least she didn't attack me. Kevin also supported me, told me Sarah was being irrational and needed to calm down. But Sarah didn't want to hear reason. Said the results were probably manipulated. How am I supposed to manipulate a DNA test from a certified lab? That I should have believed Melissa from the beginning, that I was using the patriarchal system to escape my responsibilities. It was super awkward. She ended up leaving my parents' house in a fury, and I thought, well, at least everything was cleared up with my family now and we could move on. 2 weeks later, on a Monday morning, I'm at my office working when I get a message from my cubicle mate telling me to go see something at the building entrance. I go down thinking maybe a package had arrived or something. and I find Sarah and Melissa standing at the entrance with a huge sign that said something like, "Brandon, my last name is a deadbeat dad who abandons his children," with photos of me they'd pulled from my social and media. There were like 10 people passing by, people who worked in my building, and they were there shouting, handing out flyers with my information and false accusations. I stood there paralyzed, didn't know what to do, felt like the whole world was looking at me and judging me without knowing the truth. My boss found out about the incident because several employees reported what was happening outside. He called me to his office that same afternoon and told me, very calmly but very seriously, that he understood I was going through personal problems, but he couldn't allow that to affect the work environment and the company's reputation. He told me verbatim, "If this happens again, we're going to have to reconsider your position here." I mean, he was basically telling me he'd fire me if Sarah and Melissa did their show again. I was devastated, felt like crying right there but held back, assured him it wouldn't happen again and that I'd handle the situation. That night I couldn't sleep at all, was going over all this thinking, what do I do? It was no longer just a personal problem with my ex and my sister. Now, it was affecting my job, my livelihood, my professional reputation. The next day, I went to see a lawyer, a guy a friend recommended. His name was Daniel Foster, and he specialized in defamation and harassment cases. I told him the whole story, showed him the DNA results, Melissa's messages, photos of the incident at my work, everything. He told me I had a solid case and that we could send cease and desist letters to both Melissa and Sarah, warning them that if they continued with the harassment and defamation, we'd take more severe legal action. Daniel prepared the letters and sent them certified to both. The letter clearly explained that I had proven through DNA testing that I wasn't the child's father, that all the public accusations they were making were false and defamatory, and that if they continued, we'd take legal action that could result in substantial damages. I thought that would stop them, that they'd understand I was serious, and that this had gone too far. But no, instead of stopping, they decided to escalate everything even more, which honestly, I still can't believe happened. Like a week after they received the letters, Sarah created this whole social media campaign. She posted on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all saying my full name. I'm obviously not going to repeat it here, but it was my real first and last name, with photos of me, saying I was an irresponsible father who had abandoned my son, that I had manipulated DNA evidence, that I was a perfect example of how men use the system to evade their responsibilities. Melissa shared everything, added her own posts saying I'd left her alone and pregnant, that Noah asked about his dad, and she didn't know what to tell him. All lies, obviously, because the kid wasn't even mine. The thing went viral in our social circles. I started getting messages from people I didn't even know. Well, some insulting me, others asking if it was true, some trying to defend my version of events, but being attacked by Sarah and her followers. The worst came like 2 weeks later when they organized an actual protest outside my office. And when I say protest, I mean like 15 to 20 people with signs, megaphones, shouting slogans about deadbeat dads and justice for single mothers. Melissa was there with Noah. The poor kid didn't even know what was happening, was just standing there looking at everything confused. Sarah leading the chants. Building security had to remove them from the property. They called the police. It was a completely humiliating scene. I got emails from colleagues asking what was happening, some with genuine concern, others clearly judging me without knowing the full truth. My boss called me to his office again that same day. This time was different. He was angry, told me this was unacceptable, that there were clients who witnessed the protest, that the firm's reputation was at risk. He gave me an ultimatum. Resolve this immediately, or you're going to have to leave. He didn't fire me at that moment, but it was clear he was about to if things didn't calm down. I left that meeting feeling completely defeated, humiliated, angry, frustrated, all at the same time. I called Daniel immediately and told him we needed to take legal action now, that this had gotten completely out of control. Daniel prepared a formal lawsuit for harassment, defamation, and emotional damages against Melissa and Sarah. The lawsuit included everything: the social media posts, the protests, the impact on my work and professional reputation, all documented with screenshots, photos, testimonies from colleagues, the DNA results, everything. We asked for compensation for damages, that they delete all social media posts, and that they cease all contact and public accusations. And when they got the lawsuit notification, it finally seemed like they understood the gravity of the situation, or at least that's what I thought. Melissa was the first to contact Daniel to reach a settlement. Her lawyer, because obviously she had to hire one when she saw this was serious, contacted us saying she wanted to resolve this out of court. We had several negotiation meetings. It was exhausting and super tense, but eventually we reached an agreement. Melissa agreed to pay a sum of money in damages. I'm not going to say exactly how much, but it was enough to cover my legal expenses. And then some. Delete all posts about me on her social media, sign a no contact and no defamation agreement, and make a public statement. Though small, clarifying that DNA results confirmed I was not Noah's father. Everything was legally documented, signed, sealed, and I thought, at least that was resolved. Sarah was a completely different story. She flat out refused any settlement at first, said she had the right to free speech, that she was defending a single mother, all that discourse. But when her lawyer explained to her that freedom of speech doesn't cover defamation with proven false information, and that the DNA results were irrefutable evidence that her accusations were false, she finally started to understand the real problem she was in. We had to go to a mandatory conciliation hearing with a court mediator. It was one of the most uncomfortable experiences of my life because my parents were also there, my dad on my side, my mom trying to stay neutral, but clearly anguished by everything. At that hearing, Sarah basically had a complete breakdown. She started crying, saying she had only wanted to help Melissa, that she thought she was doing the right thing, that she didn't realize how far everything had gone. Part of me felt sorry for her in that moment. She's my sister after all, and I'd never seen her like that. But another part was still super angry about everything she'd done, about how she'd ruined my life without even taking the time to verify the facts. The mediator helped us reach an agreement. Sarah would delete all her posts, make a public statement similar to Melissa's, pay damages a considerable amount, like several $1,000s, and sign a no-contact agreement. The money issue was complicated for Sarah because she didn't have that amount saved. My dad flat out refused to help her, told her this was a consequence of her own actions and that she had to learn to be responsible. My mom eventually agreed to lend her part of the money, which honestly bothered me a bit. But I understand she's her daughter and didn't want to see her in more serious legal trouble. But Sarah had to get the rest on her own. I think she took out loans and maybe sold some things. I'm not sure of all the details because we don't really talk anymore. All this was legally resolved like 2 months ago. If social media is clean, the statements were published, though obviously they didn't have the same reach as the original accusations. That's always how it works. The agreements are signed, and technically, everything is over. But the truth is, the consequences are still present in my life in many ways. My relationship with Sarah is basically destroyed. We haven't talked since the conciliation hearing, and honestly, I don't know if we'll ever have a normal sibling relationship again. My mom tries to stay in touch with both of us, but I can tell she's stressed about the family situation. Sometimes she calls me to ask how I am, and I feel like she wants to say something about Sarah, but holds back. My dad and Kevin have been incredible support through all this. I don't know what I would have done without them. My dad even threatened to cut off all financial help to Sarah if she didn't resolve this. She's like 31 years old, but my parents still help her with rent sometimes, which I think was part of what motivated her to reach the settlement. Kevin was there for me in the hardest moments, when I felt like everything was falling apart, just listening to me vent or distracting me with normal things so I wouldn't go crazy thinking about all this. At work, things have calmed down, but I feel like there's a tension that didn't exist before. Some colleagues who witnessed the protests or saw something on social media before everything was deleted still look at me weird sometimes, though nobody says anything directly. My boss has me more watched than before. I feel like I have to constantly prove I'm professional and reliable, which is exhausting. I've thought about looking for work at another company to start fresh, but I also don't want it to seem like I'm running away, or that something about the accusations was true. What still affects me most is the damage to my reputation that probably will never be completely repaired. I know there are people out there who saw the original accusations but never saw the clarifications, who probably still think I'm a deadbeat dad who abandoned his son. I've Googled my name, and although most of the posts were deleted, some things remain in screenshots that other people shared, comments I can't control. It's a horrible feeling knowing there are people who have a completely false image of who I am based on lies, and there's no way to reach all those people to clarify the truth. Regarding Melissa, I don't know what happened to her after all this. I know she had to pay the settlement. I know she deleted the posts, but I have no idea how she's managing her life now or who Noah's real father is. Part of me feels sorry for the kid because he had nothing to do with this whole mess, was just used by his mom to try to get money from a stranger. I hope he's okay and that Melissa eventually does the right thing looking for the real father, but honestly, it's not my problem anymore and I don't want to know anything about it. I've been going to therapy for like 3 months because all this really affected me more than I wanted to admit. My therapist has helped me process the anger, the feeling of betrayal, especially from Sarah, the anxiety I developed, regarding work and my reputation. I still have days where I feel angry about everything that happened, about how unfair it was, about how a lie can cause so much damage so quickly, while the truth takes much more time and effort to reach the same amount of people. Family is still complicated. My parents tried to organize another family gathering a few weeks ago, like early Thanksgiving, but I said I didn't feel comfortable if Sarah was going to be there, and she said the same thing about me. So, in the end, nothing happened. Kevin says it's shit that family gatherings have become impossible because of this. And he's right, but I also don't know how to fix it. I can't just pretend nothing happened, that my sister didn't almost ruin my life by refusing to see the truth even when the evidence was right there in front of her. What I learned from all this, I guess, is that people are going to believe what they want to believe, especially if it fits with their pre-existing ideologies or narratives. Sarah was so into her mindset of always believe women and always doubt men that she couldn't see that in this specific case, the woman was lying and the man was telling the truth. I also learned that false accusations can destroy a life almost as effectively as real ones, that the damage is done instantly, but cleaning your name takes months or years, and that even with irrefutable proof, there will always be people who doubt or simply don't care about the truth. Did I do the right thing in all this? I think so. I don't regret asking for the DNA test. I don't regret defending myself legally. I don't regret setting boundaries with Sarah. But I also can't say I came out of this experience unscathed. My family is broken. My reputation is damaged. My trust in people is rock bottom. I'm trying to rebuild my life little by little, focusing on my work, on my mental health, on the relationships that do work like the one I have with my dad and Kevin. Last week, my mom called me to ask if I could eventually consider forgiving Sarah. I told her I don't know, that maybe with time, but that right now, I'm not there. Sarah has never offered me a real apology. Just that breakdown at the hearing that seemed more about her feeling bad about the legal consequences than about understanding the real damage she caused. Until she fully acknowledges what she did and why it was wrong, I don't see how we could rebuild anything. For now, I'm taking things day by day. Some days are better than others. Some days I can go to work and feel almost normal. And other days I feel that anxiety in my chest when someone looks at me for more than 2 seconds, wondering if they know something or if they're judging me. I keep going to therapy, keep trying to move forward, keep hoping that eventually this will just be an ugly period of my life that's in the past. But for now, this is my reality, and I'm doing the best I can with it.